Greetings, how are you all doing? I hope you could hear me well in the back. I tell you, this topic of convergence is an extremely important one. And indeed, the XPANSE event is a good example of convergence. And for me, it's simply a place where cross-disciplinary activities can occur. And it's also a place where ideas can come and intertwine and generate new experiences, generate other new ideas. I say I cannot help but think about this connection with science, connection with engineering, and the arts. It was such a pleasure to see that many of the folks running this conference, camera individuals, sound individuals, did you know they're all scientists and engineers? And so to me, this is the kind of convergence that is very exciting. So I thought in my less than 10 minutes, I would give you some examples in this space that really touched me over time. Let me begin with Da Vinci. In the late 1400s into the early 1500s, Da Vinci did these phenomenal drawings of anatomy. That was the first example of where you had the anatomy of the human body captured with scientific accuracy. In other words, he was basically taking a photograph, and he did it with the precision of his drawings so that when you look at it, and if you get a chance, look at these old drawings from your phone, the muscles, you look at the rib cage, the interior of the human being. That meant that I could take that picture, that piece of art, and I could share it with you, and you could get an insight into this in the 1400s. And now today, of course, that technology has gone over into a whole other dimension. Another quick example I'd like to tell you where art and science comes together is actually when you're looking at the Guggenheim going up. If you look closely at that museum, it is actually pushing engineering to its limits. And at the same time, it has an emotional resonance with you, capturing what Frank Gehry does. He does deconstructive architecture. And so it looks like the place is falling apart. It looks like there is a kind of chaos. And yet within that chaos, there is an order that ties together with the engineering. Now, if you look across history, you're going to see many examples of this. If you take, for example, just the Green Revolution. I come from a developing country. When you look at agricultural science, you look at genetics, you look at mechanization, that has come together to make crops of a different variety that you didn't know before. Equally important, it made crops that were resilient. And the amazing exponential breakthrough of that is that it was able to feed many people who would otherwise starve. So this kind of convergence of different minds, this convergence, this collaboration is extremely, extremely important in the current century. If I may, I would like to pick one from space. The UAE has a very strong relationship with the International Space Station. At my university last week, one of the astronauts visited. His Excellency Sultan Al Neyadi. And he told us a bit about his experiences going up to the space station. He was the first Arab to be in space for as long as 6 months. No one from this region had done that before. He was the first Arab to do a spacewalk. And so you have here an individual who was highly trained, pushed ahead the boundaries, And when you listen to the kind of experiences and scientific preparation it took for that to happen, it was convergence. It was interdisciplinary collaboration. So he said something interesting. When they first got out of orbit, he said he saw flashes in his eyes. And those flashes were actually cosmic particles interacting with his eyes. Another thing, it was the first time he began feeling in a very serious way, in some ways, the dissonance that happens with your vestibular system, the thing that lets me know I am upright, that is ground, balance and orientation. And when that begins to lose its grip on you, he said when he came back to Earth, it took him several days to learn how to walk again. And it took him 3 weeks to be able to run. He loves jogging. And he said what this is really saying is there's a new frontier that collaboration has led to, and it's called space medicine. They be able to treat symptoms and actual physical impact of being in zero gravity. How do you take the medicine of today and reframe that within the context of zero gravity? This is extremely, extremely important. Not only that, the medicines that you need when you're in space and when you're on long journeys, you can't carry a whole pharmacy with you on that rocket. And so there is also opportunity for breakthroughs with being able to build your own medicines while you're on long space exploration travel. And so these are the kinds of frontiers that are coming up through the collaborations that we're talking about. Now, I will say one other thing. Our dear friend, my iPhone. The area of physics I study is Einstein's theory. And this is an example of convergence of mathematics and physics. He came up with two theories. His 1905 one dealt with motion, his special theory of relativity, and the 1915 one dealt with gravity. And one of the predictions that came out of this theory, what on earth does that have to do with a cell phone? And how does this connect to art? Well, GPS technology, my phone has a GPS chip in it. For that to work, you need his two theories. And when you apply his two theories, you will discover that the time the satellites that are sending signals to Earth continuously take to get to Earth, if you don't calculate that time using his two theories, we will get the positioning of everything on Earth using GPS completely wrong. And each day that goes by, you'll be off by more and more miles. So this technology sits within this phone, coming from ideas that we would normally associate with being esoteric. That convergence led to what surely was an exponential breakthrough and foundational to GPS technology. But I want to pick up on one other element of it. When you look at this phone, and for those of you who are fans of Steve Jobs, there was art that was put in the design of this phone. He wanted to make sure that not only was the technology first rate, not only was the science solid, but that the aesthetics of this phone, the design, the art, would be able to resonate with you as a human being. And so when you see this sleek design, and when you touch it, the tactile, all of that was carefully done with design. That was carefully done in collaboration with artists. And so what it did, was to create an exponential breakthrough in personal technology. Even the software, when you use it, the touch, you click, you expand, that makes it appealing, it resonates with you emotionally, there's an ease and a power to it at the same time. They made a breakthrough that everyone else began imitating. And so what we're saying through conferences like this is that this convergence is not something to take lightly. We must foster it. And the way you do this is you have to each play a leadership role in fostering, in enabling it. And perhaps the last thing on this aspect that I will say, in my role as provost, it is to help to foster research, to foster learning, and to be able to do this for peoples from all over the world. Our university has some 2,000 undergraduates. They come from over 125 different countries, including my country, Belize. They have so much different ways of knowing, different ways of being, different ways of processing the world, in other words, and different values, different aesthetic flavors. And I say that when you have peoples coming together in this way, and to me, Abu Dhabi represents this kind of hub, this kind of nexus. When you have this kind of convergence, the probability of igniting creativity that can plant the seeds for breakthrough increases, I would also say, exponentially. And so what I believe that is extremely important with each of us, whether you are a professor, whether you're a collaborator in a research group, I don't know, you know those are research papers hanging there, whether you're working together with a colleague on a paper, one thing I know that will be very, very important in all of this is the ability to adapt, to be agile. And when you're able to do this and not be frightened by these breakthroughs in new technology, and to have the courage to not lose a sense of confidence in the face of new technology, I think you begin to foster the opportunities. And so for us at the university, we constantly are encouraging students to experiment, to look for things that normally others may shun, or others may say, that will never work. Never accept that. And so I say that all in all, these kinds of events, bringing together the science, engineering, art, is extremely important. And I'm thankful that this has happened today, and we will continue to drive ahead with all the energy that we have. Thank you so much for listening. Very good.